everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of Monday Moments with the Moon. Now, like the previous 3 episodes, this is once again not an episode for younglings, so if you're in the younger audience, I recommend you get a parent to watch it first, or just skip this one and go watch some of my other videos, because I do have other videos you could watch. This is though going to be the last one like this, so I'm thinking for like the next, let's not fall off. I'm thinking for like the next week or two, I'll do like some fun little story time things just to lighten up the mood since these last few weeks have been on a bit more serious topics. Well, I'm on Hypixel Housing as you could probably guess. I'm back on the Parkour Yes map with the ducks, because you know what, I just really wanted to do the duck level, so here I am. And I guess I should get into it. So with this week, I will be finishing off my series of topics revolving around relationships, with a topic that I struggled a lot with. And it was only recently that I learned how to accept this idea. You see, God disapproves of same-sex relationships. And for me, that was hard for me to process, because I was seeing these relationships, and I wasn't noticing any harm coming from them. These people seemed so happy together, and I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of there being a sin that seemed to be based in love. I did a lot of research on this issue because, to be honest, I nearly stopped being a Christian because of it. I didn't want to worship and serve a God who seemed to be against love. And isn't that what same-sex attraction is? Another type of love? So I started looking into God's definition of love. Everywhere I turned, I saw this idea of love being putting others above yourself. It's all about self-sacrifice. And then I found myself looking closely at the relationships Jesus had with his disciples, and the relationships the disciples had with each other. It was so intimate. It went beyond marriage, and they loved each other in a way I could only dream of my future husband loving me. So clearly, God had nothing against two people of the same sex sharing an intense bond. In fact, he seemed to encourage it. Take David and Jonathan, for example. They had an intense relationship built out of trials, and a love that was described as deeper than that of brothers. And God blessed that relationship. This was a great comfort to me because I'm known as someone who has intense relationships. I think back about the relationships I had with other girls, and there were some times when I was afraid I was doing something wrong or allowing myself to be so close to them. But I wasn't. I was doing as God intended, making bonds with other humans. God created us to be social, so me having intense moments with fellow girls is something God wants me to do. He wants me to be able to share my hurts and joys with other people. So having intense relationships with someone of the same sex isn't wrong. Working together in business or in projects also isn't. I'd even go so far as saying living together is fine if it helps you better work on the plans God has for your lives. Women live with other women and men live with other men all throughout history. I mean, at this moment, I'm supposed to be living in an apartment with 3 other girls. I then began looking into God's definition of sex, and found that sex had very little to do with love. In my last Monday Moment episode, I talked about how sex can be very special and an intimate thing, but only if saved for that one right person. When it came to building a loving relationship, I shared how I had no intention of letting sexual desires have any play, as I feel that would do more harm than good. By studying the Bible, I realized a truth I hadn't thought about before, and that was that sexual desires had nothing to do with love. They are purely based on emotions and they change over time. They don't last. And God is all about creating a love that lasts through everything. Well, so then came the question, if sex and sexual desires don't have a role in our relationships, then what purpose do they have? Well, for one, they are a gift from God that allows us to enjoy making and raising children. And as I said before, when paired with love, it helps create an even more intimate relationship with that one special person. But like all things in the world, when sin entered, sexual desires were corrupted. Instead of us finding that desire with only one person, we feel it towards multiple and oftentimes even towards people of the same sex. people who we are physically incapable of creating and raising a family with. These desires became something that grows and fades depending on people's emotion. It became something unstable or even dangerous. It became something we want to act on in the heat of the moment, and oftentimes regret when that moment is over. It became something based on emotion instead of love. I feel like I can't end this topic without touching on family structures. I explained in an earlier episode how men and women are created differently. How men were created to be leaders and women to be supporters. I just want to touch on how important it is for a child to have both of these role models in their life. When one of these or both become missing, the child loses out in unimaginable ways. This is the reason same-sex marriage is so dangerous, because it leads to families being created where one of these elements are missing. And I know what you're going to say, well, that's better than the child being an orphan or in foster care. I mean, to which I just have to respond, when did we start settling for the better of two worse situations? God wants the best for every child. He wants us to work to make sure that every child has the best life they can, with a leader of a father and a supporting mother who helps them grow in faith and relationship with Christ. Now, these models don't have to be biological, and in this sinful, grief-stricken world, many times they can't be. So I guess this is my call for guys to become father figures and girls mother figures to young men and women who don't have those figures in their life. To summarize, God encourages intimate relationships between men and other men, and women and other women. What he is against is those relationships turning from ones of love to ones based on sexual desires, one based on having sex outside God's intended use of sex. After all, sex is a gift from God for the purpose of having and raising a family, and like many gifts, not all of us are destined to experience it. Same-sex relationships that are sexual is a sin because it goes against God's idea of a proper family structure and God's intended use of sex. A child needs a leader of a father and a supportive mother, but in the end, trying to create a same-sex parent group is selfish and is acting out of desires, not out of love. I don't want this to feel like an attack on people who are in same-sex relationships. In my first episode of the series, I talked about how I get that many people will disagree with what I have to say, and in the end of the day, it's your life, and you're going to live it as you see fit. The purpose of these series, as I said in my first episode of them, is to simply explain the biblical perspective of these different topics, not to be an attack against people who don't share my views on it. If you want to be in a same-sex relationship, well, I disagree with the choice. I'm not going to stop you from having the choice. I just want to open up the door for conversations, for seeing multiple points of views. And if you are someone who's struggling with desires, I just want you to know that you're not alone. So many other people struggle with same-sex attraction, even when they know deep inside it's not right. People also struggle with attraction of people who they aren't married to, after they've already committed themselves to one person. These sexual desires, these sinful desires, are so common. So you're not alone. Reach out to a church or to that significant other or to a family member or, most importantly, to prayer, to God. I can't promise that the struggle will stop or even that it'll lessen. But I can promise that God is willing to struggle with you. We made it past the 50 level marks. That's good. Anyways, I hope you guys actually enjoyed and learned something from this, I guess it was 4-part series that I did. I also hope you're looking forward to some more lighthearted storytime videos in the future, as well as some more that are like these, which is a bit more serious. I also hope you have a beautiful and blessed day, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye!